Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jen DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl, and contributor Robin Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Welcome to episode 58 of the Women in Vinyl podcast. Today, we're diving into the world of vinyl animation with special guest and Women in Vinyl buddy, Drew Tetz. Drew is one of only a handful of people worldwide bringing the vintage art of the Zoetrope to life on your turntable. Drew's work has captured the attention of artists and labels alike, with over 65 exciting projects last year, including collaborations with Frozen, Glass Animals, John Lennon, Beetlejuice, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and more, including our Women in Vinyl Spooky Slipmat from 2023. From art school to the Super Bowl, Drew has an incredible journey, and we can't wait for you to hear all about it. Enjoy. Drew, welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here. Love what you do.
Drew Tetz. It's Drew Tetz. I mean, long-time listener, first-time caller. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I do.
Both ways, though.
Both ways.
It's so funny. It's like the actual first time that I've ever talked to you instead of just like Instagramming. Oh my God, that's so cool. Blah. Like,
Well, we've been on a couple of projects together, haven't we? I mean, certainly this most recent thing everyone's about to find out about with the bespoke stuff, what you do, but also getting to do a couple years back, I got to do a little promo slip mat for Women in Vinyl. So, I'm a big fan. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, vice versa. And the world kind of caught fire in 2024 with Drew Tetzia, Drew Tetzmania, where everybody was like, oh my God, I love Glass Animals and Frozen and Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice, and of course, The Lion King. I mean, I could go on. I mean, Russell wants to tell you how much he loves his Street Fighter 6 Street
awesome.
as well.
Awesome.
So I would be
Glad to
remiss
hear it.
if I didn't get that in there too. So
Yeah. Well, as a kid who was a big nerdy fan of Nightmare Before Christmas and Street Fighter and all these things, it's pretty surreal. It's definitely nice to
get into it. Tell us everything about that little kid and how you have become into this not so little kid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was I think that the world has a pretty good grip on the sort of child I was. I liked drawing and comic books and video games. And, a lot of us have grown up and moved on to being artists and working with a lot of these properties that we kind of love. So it's really cool that a lot of my friends who are also in their mid-30s can kind of relate to that same being back as an 8-year-old and being like, oh my God, I got to do something for the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Is Master Splinter going to call me? I don't know. He hasn't yet, but
the phone operators are standing by.
yeah. So that's definitely, and of course, I'm sure I'm going to talk about this over and over, but I'm a stupid mega fan nerd of so many record labels and bands and everything. So being able to come back and interact with all of these things that have given so much to me and my heart and my world, despite not being able to, play a chord or hit a note, it's really, really something.
I mean, I think that's what we've kind of tried to shine the biggest light on is that even if you love records, you don't have to be a musician to make them.
Yeah.
Like there is literally a place for everybody, no matter how nerdy. Along this path. So, I mean, that's just like a testament to it.
Yeah, because I was the same way. I didn't play or anything, and I was like, what am I going to do? So found my way here late, like a lot of us, but
Yeah. Well, it's good that we have stuff to contribute.
Yeah, totally.
And we'll be in the front row singing along, whether you like it or not. So we'll try to practice a little bit more on the gang vocals.
And so you went to art and design school?
Yeah. I went for undergrad for just graphic design. I didn't do any kind of animation or anything. I was interested in it, but I kind of just thought it was way too hard. Like I had friends doing animation, and they would spend 2 weeks in a row to get this 3-second pencil test, and I was like, okay, good for you. That's amazing. That's clearly something beyond my comprehension. So I never even really entertained the idea of being an animator. But I was always interested in it. And I was kind of just working in the design field well, like most freelancers, working in the design field means working 3 to 5 jobs, some of which are tangentially design related, and some are just working in a fourth grade classroom. But that's good, it gave me the well-rounded development to kind of mess around. And at one point in my life, after my friend had just won the World Yo-Yo Contest, which is weirdly the easiest way to segue into this, I had convinced him to use his winnings to buy a laser cutter, so we had this whole big dream of being independent toy producers. And actually, that was
Wow.
I I completely tried to jam my vinyl obsession into this completely unrelated facet of my life where it's like, yeah, we're going to make flat pack little models and we're going to package them in LP sleeves. So you pull it out and Hank's just like, whatever, dude. All right. I got a couple $1,000. Let's see what happens.
I love it.
Um, Needless to say, that company is defunct. We did manage to break even more or less, and we
Hey.
we got to make a bunch of weird stuff, including
Yeah.
at one point I was working my 2 to 3 other jobs and babysitting this laser cutter in my apartment, which bless my neighbors for never calling the cops on me when there was smoke billowing out of the windows. But I was thinking, odds are good I'm not going to be able to play with a laser every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
This is
right.
probably not going to be sitting in my spare room forever. So I want to try and make all the weird stuff I can,
Yeah.
before I lose access to this really weird, awesome thing.
Yeah.
And I had remembered seeing, I forget what it was exactly that struck it, but I was thinking about like wood grain texture. Like, wouldn't it be so cool if you engraved all of the frames in a sheet of wood and then photographed it? And so it was like an animated, and I tried it. It took forever. It looked really bad, but it was like enough of a I had invested enough time at that point that I was like, I got to make it work. I got to make some kind of physical animation. And so I started thinking back about like the Victorian stuff, the actual pre-cinema, like
Flipbook
zoetropes.
tapes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
phenakistoscopes and
Cool.
zoetropes. Because I remember being like 4 or 5 years old in the St. Joseph Children's Museum. And that was like really one of the first times I understood like a cartoon is a series of animations because they had one of those the little carousels with the slits in it, and you spin it by
Mm-hmm.
hand, and they have a little running dog.
Yep.
So I can remember being like, 3 feet tall and just being like, oh my God, the dog starts moving. Like these are all the pictures. So, I guess I've always had this, I've always wanted to be an animator. And
Yeah.
this was just after 20 something years of wanting to do that, I finally got to a point where it's like, all right, this is a weird enough angle where I don't have to think about, pencil tests and
Pencil test.
storyboarding.
Yeah.
I can do,
Totally.
I'm just gonna sample this little illustration loop of Daedalus on his drum machine and 16 frames. I can make 16 frames happen. And yeah, and the weirdest thing looking back at it is that I never did an actual paper print test. I was like, it's got to be on the wood. I got to spend 3 hours later engraving it. So clearly, you know, I can't say that I had a great plan in mind. A lot of it was definitely just kind of messing around. But then,
Mhm.
like, when I put it on the turntable and I got the lights on and I started playing with the speed and I actually got it tuned in to where the image came into play, it was like, oh my God,
I get
it's
it.
working. This
Yeah.
is, it's here.
Yeah.
It's not on a screen. It's not, I didn't draw this and play it back in Adobe Photoshop. It's like actually on the turntable in the world and I can see the frames. And that was like mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
It was like taking me right back to being 5 years old in the Children's Museum, suddenly understanding how cartoons work.
Totally.
So that
Where is St. Joseph's
in
Children's Museum?
Michigan,
In
in
Michigan.
Michigan,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. Shout out to the mitten.
yeah,
Love the
yeah.
mitten.
Shout out to children's museums
Also
everywhere.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. Museums in general. I mean,
That
yeah.
that really feels like the dream job is like just getting to make something that a little kid will see and be like, "Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn science."
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's job that is, we're doing the
Yeah.
Lord's work. Good stuff.
The docents in the museums that know more than sometimes the people that are curating the exhibits. Yeah,
Bless them all.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But
That's
Well,
yeah,
awesome.
that
So, I mean, what was that first image? What did
so
you make?
so the very first one I did was it's of that musician Daedalus.
Hmm.
They're from the Los Angeles beat scene. I mostly know them from their well they did a lot of sort of LA Beat Scene tapes, and in the 2000s they had a really great mixtape with Radio Inactive and Bus Driver called The Weather, which is
Okay.
a sort of experimental, 2000s Mush Anticon style, really experimental hip hop and a lot of borderline spoken word and experimental tape loops, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And it was one of the first sort of, I guess, experimental hip hop projects that sort of took over my brain. So I've really
Hmm.
always admired them and their approach to beat making and stuff. But beyond that, they're also an incredible performer because, a lot of drum machine performers, they're awesome to listen to, but they get that sort of laptop
Hmm.
face where they're just super focused, droning out,
Yeah.
pounding on the four pads, which is like, sounds awesome, but you aren't necessarily looking at them.
Not
Alfred,
entertained. Yeah.
yeah, when Alfred is on stage, they're moving their arms. They get the full range of motion. It's like it's really something to watch. It's like
Cool.
it's almost like the Bugs Bunny composer skit. And I mean that in the most positive way. They're an absolute wizard of music and they're fabulous. So
Awesome.
that was like, okay, this is a cool little illustration. I grabbed
Hmm.
that. I did, to my credit, try to do a couple little moving shapes like a starburst turn into a circle and expanding.
Hmm.
And I think partially because I didn't actually know what I was doing, I kind of just was like, I'm going to do one at 16 frames and one at 24 frames and just put them all on there. So Alfred or Daedalus is the one that actually came into focus,
Yep.
which I don't know if that was, Kismet or whatever, but that was really cool because later that year, Daedalus actually saw the piece, and that led to my first sort of official music piece, which was working on the special request video for them.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so that was really cool in the kind of wooden era before I figured out I could actually print on paper, and I didn't really know what I was doing. It was really nice to have kind of this mentor figure that I had always admired. Not necessarily a mentor. I don't want to,
But
put that
inspiration,
burden on
like
them.
your muse a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, someone that who had always inspired me to like look at what I was doing and be like, wow, this is cool. What can we do with this? Even
Hmm.
though it was very formless and chaotic and had a ton of artifacts and everything. It was really nice to have that kind of encouragement. So I'm forever grateful to Daedalus for really taking me along that first year.
That's awesome. I love that so much.
Yeah, it
And
was
may-
really cool.
and maybe for people that don't know, I mean, you talked a little bit about the old school animation, but like specifically what a zoetrope is. Like I was reading the Make article that you wrote before this,
Mhm.
and maybe you could just explain a little bit about that.
Yeah. So zoetropes are super interesting because, well, I mean, obviously I like them a lot, but I think they actually are a really interesting facet of kind of the whole history of film because they predate pretty much all animation formats.
Mhm.
The first recorded zoetrope actually predates the flip book, which is insane to me because
That's a little backwards. Hey, yeah.
how are you going to figure out putting them in a circle and spinning that before you figure out just, I don't know.
I mean, much like you and I, it's the hard way first. And then
Okay,
you're like,
I
oh,
guess.
it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be this way. Let's backtrack in a minute. I get
It's
it.
absolutely mental to me that there were people in the 1700s, 1800s figuring this out without computers, without, anything. They're kind of just drawing it by hand. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't imagine what it must have been like for the first person to spin it up and actually see the illusion of motion. Because, that's without, well, without television, obviously, but without even flip books,
Yeah.
It's just so insane to think about. But yeah, to keep stop myself from building it up forever. It
No,
is
you're good.
the original form of animation. It's a pre-cinema device where basically it's a circle, and around the rim of the circle, there's a sequence of images, sort of like a film strip, but laid out in the circle. And there's a series of slits in it. And the way that it would work was they would hold it in front of a mirror. I always get a little confused about which is the zoetrope and the phenakistoscope and all of these variations because essentially they're all fake Greek names invented by Victorians to sell their parlor tricks. So if I get the technical name wrong, I apologize to any art historians who bust me. But as I remember it, the zoetrope was the flat disc with the slits, and you looked
Yeah.
in the mirror and spun it. And because the slit would it would create a blink, almost like the flashing of a film projector. And that
Yeah.
would trick your brain into sort of resetting the image. So suddenly, instead of being a blur of the same image over and over, it would actually separate into discrete frames. And that blew the doors open in the next 20 years, it was around that time that Edward Muybridge took the first photographs of the horse in motion. So
Hmm.
that's generally considered the first film clip ever.
Right.
It was only 20 or so years later that we got the projectors and they started figuring out how the flickering light could make it bigger. But in that weird like 15-year thing where it's just purely printed matter, no lights at all. It's people just like standing in their living room, spinning circles to watch the little devil dance around or whatever. Like
Yeah.
what a weird time. What a
Yeah.
weird magical decade of motion picture history.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that the modern zoetrope as we know it, just focusing on the turntable stuff, it's really tied into the turntable, so locked in at 33 RPM. And the
Mhm.
other new wrinkle is that most of us work with the magic of smartphones. So we aren't building enormous physical carousels. Instead, we're relying on the frame rate of the camera, which is 30 frames per second.
Mhm.
So when you look through that, it makes the flicker and it lines up perfectly with the record. So you get the frames popping into place and you can see it on screen. You can also use a strobe light, which is much better for like showing a group of people at a party. But
Totally.
but yeah, that's basically the science. I don't want to go all day because getting into the brothers Lumiere and the mirrors and praxinoscopes, but it's cool stuff.
We'll add
But
some.
it's cool. It's cool that you know all of that stuff too, though. I mean, there's so many of us that are kind of in spaces that we don't really have that appreciation for the
I'm
history and the lore. So, I mean, that's
I'm trying. I wish it was a little bit better preserved corner of film history because I'm, to be perfectly honest, not a great art historian. I try my best, but I'm really awful at remembering dates and stuff. So when I did go to grad school and do my thesis paper about this, and I
really.
tried, yeah, yeah. And I think if you have access to an academic library or whatever, maybe you don't even
Mhm.
need that. Maybe you can just Google it.
Maybe.
But whatever the route is to reading thesis papers, if you do want to go and read a little bit about the history of zoetropes, I tried my best to compile it, but I'll be honest, this is a little bit of a neglected corner of film history. I wish I could say I was doing a lot to preserve it. I think the best I can do is just try to make cool new ones and hope that people get stoked. But it is definitely a weird little area that I wish that I knew more about because so
Yeah,
much of
yeah,
it is
yeah.
just like all the famous ones, like that one everyone knows of the devil swallowing the man flying up. It's like 8 frames and you see it mentioned in every early photo history lecture ever. And
Hmm.
nobody knows who drew that. It's not like signed or anything, so we have no clue. So things like that is like, wow, that's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so awesome that that's like one of the first ones.
Ma makes me want to like update my Discogs page with better citations though. Like, oh man, what am I not getting credited for?
No,
But
I hear
yeah,
you.
Right.
I hear you. That's awesome. Um, so I mean, I've got a different take on it of how the process works, but can you explain how a band would or a label or somebody would approach you and
yeah.
get to collaborate, or is it a little bit more like, oh no, I have this idea and you come to them where you're like, no, this
I
is how it
wish
should be.
that would be cool. That would be cool. But no, I'm definitely very much I'm from a background as a graphic designer rather than a fine artist, so I think that's good for me for working in the record industry. Because I don't really have like an ego of trying to put forward a specific image. It's really
Hmm.
just this is their record, this is their world that they built. Most of the time that I'm getting on a project, they even have the cover art and the visuals all done. So that works really well for me as sort of my history as a standards-based designer, because I'm like, all right, what's the brand here?
Yeah.
What's the world that you're building? God, I don't mean to say brand. That sounds so corporate and gross. But what's
What?
this? What's the story you're telling? Like
Yeah.
the visual identity.
Yeah.
And I will admit it's a lot easier for me to do, a repress. It's the 20-year anniversary of some punk album I listened to when I was 16 than like a modern pop artist. I'm going to have to spend a couple days listening to them and getting into their world before I can claim to really understand what they're about.
Hmm.
But I think that's like also so exciting. Just sort of, yeah, trying to decipher their world and break it into this other visual. That's like the coolest part to me.
Yeah.
But to get back to the actual question after rambling for a bit there,
It's okay. You're the with the queen of ramble. It's so fine.
yeah, generally I'm at it pretty late on the project. The album's all recorded. Album art is almost always done.
Hmm.
So what they say is usually, we're planning out the vinyl releases. We want to do a picture disc zoetrope. Um, this is what we have so far. What can we do? There are cases sometimes where someone has a specific idea. Sometimes people are even like, we have this animation made for you, which is like, wow, for me? You made that for me? Um, but most of the time it's very open-ended, which I think is really cool because it gives me a chance to sort of dialogue with it.
Hmm.
Obviously, just trying to find the best execution to match the identity of the album and the sound and everything, match sound to visual. But going through that process of breaking down all the individual elements of the album cover and like trying to go through the lyrics and find crucial themes and
Hmm.
eventually putting together a little folder of 8 to 10 options that they say, okay, these are the two that we want.
Oh,
That's
wow.
like a and it's not always that linear.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're like, we don't like any of these. Can we have can we have 6 to 12 of something else entirely?
Oh my
Or
God.
or sometimes they're like, this is great, we'll take it. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
no, that was the draft. Don't send to press yet.
Not that one, not that
Uh,
one.
but
How
but
long does that process take though? Like from, let's say Jen and I are about to drop our hot beat tape and we're like,
I,
oh yeah, it's time for the vinyl.
I
How long is your process for designing 6 to 12 or 8 to 10
I
crazy sides? I mean,
I
wow.
like to ask for a month because that's
Mhm.
usually about
Really?
a week of sketching and then a week of
Wow.
like where we check back in. We're like, okay, this is probably feasible. And then at
Cool.
like the 2 week point, I try to drop a wide survey of like
Yeah.
everything that could possibly, not necessarily polished up, but like this is the general direction it'll go.
Yeah.
Then from there, we kind of try to pick. If they can pick two sides at that point, it's awesome because then we have 2 weeks just to polish. But more often than that, that's just round one. And then
Right.
week three is round two. And then week four is when we all freak out and drink lots of coffee. And of course, record industry being that it is, a month is,
Mhm.
a lot of times a luxury. That's
Mhm.
sometimes 2 weeks. I've
Yeah.
tried really hard to say no to week-long jobs, but I,
Yeah.
I like buying groceries, so I'm not above
Yeah.
it.
Totally. Well, I mean, 2024 was kind of a banner year for you, was it not? It seemed
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2024 was the unofficial year of the Zoetrope.
It was a big one. I'm
Yeah.
really grateful that I got so many jobs done. I think the final count was 64 pieces. I d-
Wow.
I
Man.
did it. I did an end tally, and as soon as I posted it to Instagram, like two people were like, "Hey man, you forgot that record we worked on," and I felt like an ass, and I updated it, and then like two more people were like, "Dude,
What about this one?
yeah." So I either have to stop doing that or get better at my bookkeeping because I'm offending people and it's not good. I'm sorry,
I
guys.
mean, they don't. I mean, when you have that many incredible projects, though, it's hard to,
Yeah,
especially if you're looking at like a 2 week turnaround for some of them. I mean,
mhm.
that's hard to keep track of.
To be fair to me, at least three of them were things that had been completed in 2023, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I forgot, that was a 2023 job.
Yeah,
So
totally. I'm with you. I'm
that's
so
what
with
I'm
you.
telling myself to feel better about my increasingly short-term memory. But but yeah, it was a big year, and for all of us too. It's a pretty small scene, the Zoetrope coven. There's only like
Beetlejuice.
five of us really, I
Yeah.
think. So I think that last year was probably the busiest year for any of us yet, because definitely Quentin Lemay, the Swiss animator, who was
Mm-hmm.
one of
He's
the
great too. Wow.
oh, he's amazing.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
had
yeah.
some of the biggest stuff because that was his year with Eminem and with the
Mm-hmm.
Linkin Park disc.
Mm-hmm.
DJ Kev had, I think, four record store day releases. Sculpture did
Oh, yeah, right.
one of their own releases, which was pretty cool. That it's nice that there's still an artist who's doing their own completely not commercially viable, really awesome abrasive art stuff in kind of in our collective as well. And then we
Totally.
also had a couple kind of newer people in the scene. Izzy Aerosmith did a really nice Zoetrope for Take That for Sony. So I think it was a
Okay.
really great it's nice to not feel alone. It's it's nice that I can like every once in a while I can tell someone what my job is and they'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I
It's
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that definitely. Absolutely, I do.
With
But I
coven
mean, like designer to designer, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I
within
mean,
that.
Jen, is that something that you ever thought of, like doing or implementing? Is that like, is animation something that you ever considered doing?
Oh no, like Drew, for me, those people were in a dark room for long periods of time.
Mhm. E-
Tedious work. I mean, building
Even now.
same stuff, like you're
Yeah.
building a whole hallway or a scene or whatever for like months. Like I just,
Hmm.
yeah. For me, it was photography and then pretty
Yeah.
much into textile design from there.
Mm.
But, I think it's interesting because when you're talking about this collective, do you ever pass work to each other? Like, are
Oh,
you like,
absolutely.
this one doesn't really fit me so well? Because I think that's
Hmm.
something interesting that people might not know is like, we all have
Yeah.
like hands for things. And so
Yeah.
Hmm.
times when I would be freelancing or doing things, people would come to me with a project, actually like way, way early, Vinyl Me Please. Like
Hmm.
they were first starting, came to me and were like, hey, can you design something for this album? And I was like, to be honest, like it wasn't inspiring me and it wasn't something that I felt I could create a good piece. So I like passed along other names. So like,
Hmm.
does that maybe work for projects with you all?
Yeah, it definitely happens. I'm super proud of the. I keep saying it's a scene, but it's funny because it's so unaffiliated. Like we don't, obviously we don't have a union. We don't have health insurance. We don't
Yeah.
have a conference we go to, and I think that I've only talked to like one of them ever on Zoom or anything.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, we do feel, I think maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I definitely feel like we have this shared bond, if only because we're the only five weirdos in the world who care enough about this dead art format to keep
Yeah.
doing it stubbornly. And then like now that it's like actually kind of taken off for us, we're like, oh yeah, this is
Hmm.
what?
It
But
was
yeah,
not for nothing. We're so
yeah.
cool.
I mean, we were pretty happy when we were just trying to impress each other. So this is
Yeah.
unreal to get some other artists that we respect in the mix too.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of passing work around, that's absolutely true. For one thing, just because, like I said, it's been such a busy time, there's more work than any of us can handle. So there's
Hmm.
been so many times where I'm like, man, this is such a cool project. I physically don't have the bandwidth to make it happen, but I really want to see it happen. This is my complete Rolodex. Please hit up one of these six people. I hope one of them has availability in their schedule
Yeah.
because I want to see it done right. Because
Yeah. Totally.
it's the worst when you know, absolutely. I want to welcome anybody who wants to try Zoetrope into the field. We need more animators, but also there's nothing worse than like seeing it done wrong and you're like, oh no, you
Yeah.
could
I
have just
think
called me.
I think that's just how like the record business feels in general
It's
though
the
too.
way,
It's just
yeah.
like, oh, really? That's what you did? Oh no.
And in a way, I know it's so precious and entitled as a fan to be like, no, I wanted to do that one, but also
Hmm.
it's like, no, it could have been so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so I'm really grateful when I see a cool project. If I'm not able to do it, I'm really glad that I can say Kevin can do that, and he
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, we're all doing that. I definitely got some jobs from Kev last year. Izzy, the Take That one, she stepped in for
Hmm.
me because that was with the Sony UK guys that I usually work with,
Hmm.
and she did a great job. So
Oh,
yeah,
good.
it's really nice. And like you said, like not everybody is. I mean, I'm a really standards oriented designer, so I don't mind just stepping up to the plate and seeing what they have. But if they want me to do like original character animation from scratch, it's like, ooh,
Hmm.
do you have like a model or some reference images? But
Hmm.
Quentin is great at that. He's got a great background in that. He's doing, independent stuff all the time. And so what he did for Linkin Park and for Eminem and for Babytron, all three of those were original animations that he did in Cinema
Oh,
4D.
wow. Yeah, those
And
were cool. Those were super cool.
yeah, and he did great. And
Yeah.
I think that's he's definitely the best out of our group at 3D animation and character animation.
Hmm.
But I think, I probably have a little more experience with sampling and breaking down film clips. I'm probably
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
most experienced out of that, out of the group of us. So it's
Well,
nice to
and
kind of all,
And all
like
the fun
without
spooky stuff.
yeah,
all the what? Sorry?
Fun spooky stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
the spooky stuff. We love the spooky
I do
stuff.
like the
But
spooky stuff.
there was a record that you did last year. I think it was last year, and it was like raindrops.
Hmm.
That one to
Yeah.
me was just beyond because
Yeah.
it's so, I mean, like animation wise, it's maybe like not that like wowie wow, but
Hmm.
it looked so realistic and it was just so mesmerizing to watch
Man.
because it actually looked like rain on your window.
Yeah, thank you. I'm
It
I'm
was
really glad you liked
masterful.
that one.
Yeah,
That
so
that was
cool.
for Holly Humberstone, Paint Your Bedroom
Hmm.
Black or Paint My Bedroom Black, and it was released with Blood Records. She's
Yeah.
a really talented singer-songwriter. I don't think she's really got many listeners in America yet, but I think she's kind of making some progress in the UK.
Hmm.
She's great though, amazingly
Yeah.
talented songwriter. And when we got the assets for her album, it was mostly a lot of kind of just like photography. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really a whole lot of animation. We did have access to the music videos, but they were sort of just the pop star,
Right.
singing. I think she's like riding on the back of a truck in one. So it wasn't really as compelling as sort of the vulnerability in her songs. It sort of made it feel a little bit. I mean, we mocked those up and we did
Yeah.
put them there. But I felt this thing with the raindrops, I really wanted to get something that kind of I don't know how to describe it without sounding like a big emotional teenager, but like she has
No,
this
I'm
it's
with you.
like
It
this
was like
kind of
evokes
vulner
the feeling of the record.
yeah, she has this
Yeah.
vulnerability in her songs where a lot of it is about being 19 and drunk and crying. And like this feeling of kind of like looking out the window and the tears going down the window or the
Mhm.
raindrops, but that's, on your face. Something about that metaphor really stuck out with me. I think she does have a lyric about rain on the window, but it's not on that album. It's on the previous one. But
Okay.
something about that really stuck with me. And so we got the raindrops sliding outward on one side and then inward on the other,
Hmm.
which visually it's just more dynamic. But if you want to be a emotional art teenager and get conceptual about it, I think it's a sweet tie into the record too. So
Yeah.
I think
No,
it
I
was
mean
cool to get that little dialogue with it.
I, lo-
that one was so beautiful. Yeah.
I
And
almost like that when it's not necessarily on the nose, you know?
mhm.
Hmm.
I feel
Hmm.
like it
Yeah,
hooks that emotion from it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
yeah. And I really like when artists are really interested in trying something that's a bit out of, it's not just directly tied to the album art. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I think that there's a lot of artists that, well, I think a lot of artists are interested in that, but just don't have the deadline or the budget to make it happen.
Yeah,
So
true.
I totally I love working on cool album art and stuff. But like when an artist is like, but what if it's this weird third thing that's outside of the existing mythology and it ties in and it makes this is like it's a piece of the whole album, but it's a new piece. Like that's I don't know,
Hmm.
special.
Hmm.
It's like getting to play on a unreleased B-side or something.
Totally. And Drew Tetz on Triangle.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I could probably handle Triangle. They might have to just mute me in the mix, but I could stand on stage and hit it.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, you and Robin worked on a pretty awesome collaboration.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
We
maybe
did.
share as
Yeah.
much of that as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. They
Well,
actually
I
never
think
made me.
because our recording day is today and the thing is tomorrow,
Hmm.
True.
and this will come out after, I think we're okay.
Yeah. Also, they never made me sign an NDA, which is
Yeah, same.
crazy. Which is
Yeah, same.
crazy. I guess they
Hmm.
figured that like if I was like, "Hey, I'm in the Super Bowl," people are just like, "Okay, whatever, Drew."
Sure you are, nerd. Yep.
Yeah. But
And
yeah,
then we're going to Disneyland.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, not to put the cart before the horse. We're in the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl, me and
We are
Robin.
going to the Super Bowl, like on a team
On a
together.
team,
We're
exactly.
not even opposing.
We
Our helmets are not
we
against each
we are
other.
carrying the world of vinyl to the Super Bowl proudly.
Right.
So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
this
It's
really
cool.
cool, surreal opportunity. In November, I got an email from a producer at Fox, Jesse Weiss, super awesome guy, really fun to work with. And he basically said, Super Bowl's in New Orleans this year. Me and my boss both love like music, and we're trying to find some kind of cool jazzy connection to the city.
Hmm.
Do you think you could do like a football zoetrope? So, yeah, I mean,
Sure.
yeah, Fox money. Yes, yes, I can do that. But it was really cool. They sent me he sent me, they have these like half-hour long film versions of every Super Bowl ever recorded pretty much. And he was like, "Do you think you could chop up this one with Tom Brady in it? Because he's one of our guys on the announcing
Hmm.
team." And so I think that will help us like push it because he'll be like, "Oh, hey, that's me." So I spent Thanksgiving break putting together some demos, and yeah, there he is.
This one,
That's the one.
the Brady.
There he is right at the top.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
so
God, I'm working with Robin and Drew. This is great.
yeah, he's so stoked.
He
I
is
mean,
stoked.
I understand. It's a lot to take in.
That's
But yeah, long and the short of it was they were stoked on it. They came
Mhm.
back to us pretty quickly. The question then was like, how are we going to make these? Which
Mhm.
obviously this is where Robin enters the picture. Actually, it was Heath at Mage who recommended you specifically
Oh, sweet
because
little guy.
yeah, I love Heath, great dude. But, uh,
Totally.
but he's one of the people that a lot of the times when I have an idea that I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not because it
Hmm.
seems really expensive, I'm like, hey man, this probably won't work, but if it did work, how do you think we could do it? And he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
talk to Robin.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no way we're doing that. Got a groove. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Totally.
He put me in well, we'd been in contact before, but I
Yeah.
reached out to you and then
Hmm.
put Jesse in contact with you, and it was yeah, pretty smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
It was frighteningly efficient. I have to say, I don't want to denigrate any of our brave comrades in the music industry because, you know,
Hmm.
Lord knows we're all one person working out of a garage on 16 projects at a time. But like
True.
the efficiency with which I was like, oh, do you think I could get a different version of this? And then like 15 minutes later, they'd email it back.
Wow.
It's like it was like
Hmm.
a very bizarre, and I love being DIY independent and working with a bunch of overstressed or caffeinated weirdos. That's great. But
Yeah.
like to like be on a team where like everyone knew what their job was and like I
Hmm.
never felt like I was late was like this is so weird.
Yeah.
What's am I forgetting something? I feel like I
Totally.
should be doing someone else's job right now, but no, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
and from my side, I mean, it was just like you sent me, I think either an Instagram note or like an email, and you're just like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like,
yeah,
"No problem. I can do that all day." And then
yeah.
it was like, "When do you need this?" Because I was traveling at the time, and I was like, "Oh, I will need those on this day in order to do that for 1 week, and then those be done and in your hands before I leave again." So
But, but we did it. We got it done.
did it.
We
Yep.
did 11 records in basically a month and a half, which is, you
Hmm.
know, don't uh,
Yeah, and
if
I
you're
mean, it was
listening to this
like,
and you're a major label, don't make me do that again.
yeah.
But we did it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing because there's 20 different images.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, I've got some of the ones. So that's the one that Drew was talking about with Tom Brady on
Yeah,
it.
they,
I mean, obviously I'm not a turntable and we're not doing this at frame rate, but for those of us that are not listening on the ear holes and watching us on YouTube, this is what it looks like. I don't know if I
yeah.
need to bring it closer.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, and then there was this really, I think this one is actually my favorite one. Um,
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
I
cool. Nice and like,
yeah,
It
yeah.
was they have
it's
a really cool I forget the name of the animator that I worked with. It might be
yeah.
Michelle.
Hmm.
I'll credit on her on Instagram whenever I get to post it. But
Yeah.
she did some really cool illustrations of like a riverboat and all this sort of
I've got the riverboat here.
in the like New Orleans fleur-de-lis and stuff. So I
Yeah,
think they
I've
did
got
a really good job.
this one with the trumpet player too, which is pretty cool.
Well,
They
one of the things I always really like about Zoetropes is like when you look at the record as a whole, you don't see any individual images, but you see the whole color palette all at once, and you kind of get
hmm
a feeling for the record.
There's that one.
And it's kind of cool to do that with like a big, super huge budget thing like the Super Bowl instead of like, you know, punk band from Ireland. Because it's like, wow, you guys are serious. You got three versions of that font, and you know that
Yeah.
I used the wrong Pantone, so I'll fix that right now. I'm sorry. It's it's pretty cool.
Well, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean this one was super cool to be like Jesse was like, "Do you want to can you do these recs for the Super Bowl?" And I was like, "Excuse me? I'm
Yeah.
I'm Canadian. What? Yes, of course I can." Sorry, what would
Yeah.
you say, Jen?
I said, where could people see them or where will they be shared?
I have no idea where they're going to be afterwards. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the Super Bowl, so
Yeah.
I
I mean, it's going to
figure
be on
it'll be. It's
Fox.
on Fox.
Yeah,
So,
Excuse
like
me.
I wonder if they're
I
going to be little segments because like it looked like
mhm.
one of those said coming up maybe.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think I think the intention is to use them as like the advertising bumpers.
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be the bumpers, like you said.
Yeah.
My initial understanding was they're going to be like sort of the lower third bars, like just the
Oh,
image.
cool.
But then when I saw the like they went and they got a little set up with, a little room with records on the walls and a DJ
Ugh.
actor and everything. So that makes me feel like there's going to be at least one full screen moment where
I
our records will be broadcast into the eyes of Americans.
Maybe
So
Do
I'll
we
ask
need to do we
record it
need to watch
like
Yeah, I
that.
was like, do we need to watch the Super Bowl?
I'm I already had to figure out how to download Tubi and watch it on my TV because I don't have television. But
Like anyway, sports. Let's see the records.
Yeah.
exactly. And
All of the music people are like, just get to the halftime show. And
exactly.
now there's just like
hmm
this bonus thing that all of us nerds are like,
It
oh,
it is
oh.
pretty it is pretty cool to get associated with Kendrick in this extremely 7 degrees away kind of way. Like, yeah, I'll take it. I
Yeah.
don't think he's ever going to ask me for a record, but I'm like, yeah, we were at the Super Bowl together, kind of.
Yeah.
I
Don't you
wasn't there. I
remember?
was at home.
Well, you also are in association with John Lennon, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
you won a Grammy?
Well, I technically didn't win a Grammy, but I did contribute work to the Grammy-winning box set for Mind Games. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Art
Yeah, dude.
directed by the wonderful Sean Ono Lennon and the equally wonderful Simon Hilton, two really
Cool.
great guys who are really, really passionate about John's music and art. And
Hmm.
I think did a really beautiful, insane job. Looking at the box, I was just looking at the box with my dad yesterday because he's, raised me on the Beatles. And
Yeah.
I think when I had told him about it, and even when he had seen the pictures, he hadn't fully internalized how much stuff is in the box.
Oh, it's
They-
jam-packed.
It's basically a museum exhibit. Like if
Yeah.
you were to go to, the Hirshhorn or something, and they were to dedicate 3 rooms to John and Yoko in New York in the 70s, this would be
Hmm.
the box just blown up and expanded into 3 rooms. But they decided to compress it into a,
Yeah.
18-inch cube. So it's really something. I think even for the most dedicated Beatlemaniac, being able to like pour over the recording notes and everything, it's just
Hmm.
insane.
Yeah.
And from my end, it was really a dream job because I've worked with Sean once before on one of his albums with the Claypool Lennon Delirium, which is
Oh,
really
cool.
fun. Yeah, really fun because as you can imagine, adding Les Claypool in there doesn't make things less weird.
Not at
Um,
all.
so that was a really kind of fun way to get bathed in their psychedelic ocean, baptism by fire. And th
Hmm.
this one, a little bit more restrained, less cosmic, but we already had a little bit of a nice working relationship. And it was really cool because Sean just said straight up, we want to do something cool, just cool as possible. What do you got? Do you have any
Cool.
cool ideas that are like, oh, we always wanted to do this, but it's just not financially feasible, or like nobody wanted
Right.
to do it because it's not like we're just building out everything. What do you got? And
Wow.
yeah, so
What
that's,
was the timeline like on that one? Because
we
that's
had a
kind of,
while.
yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a long time. I guess October 2023 was probably when we started in earnest. We had kind of
Okay.
started talking in the summer, and Sean had been working on because he did like 7 different album mixes and obviously all this archival
Wow.
stuff. So
Wow.
it's been brewing a long time. But
Hmm.
when I joined, it was about October 2023.
Cool.
And and so I ended up just kind of, yeah, put together all of the weird vinyl gimmicks I could think of that had never gotten financed before. We didn't get to use all of them. There's some of them that we may be saving for future release, knock on wood. But
Yep.
but I mean, we got to do so much. It was insane. I got to
Cool.
make a die cut sleeve with Yoko Ono's head in it. And we got to do we did this really cool thing. One of the things I'm probably the most proud of. I mean, the Zoetropes are really cool, obviously, and it was really awesome that we got to push that so far.
Hmm.
But I think sort of the most conceptually tied to the album that I'm most proud of is on the back of the Magic Box Edition LP. Rather than the standard back art, I did it's like a barrier grid or slit skin animation, which is that
Hmm.
thing where they have the black bars and one bar that's clear, so when you slide it across it, it makes an animation.
Hmm.
So we had mocked up some of those, but then we actually decided to take it back to not even an animation, just sort of an A and B thing, because we found it was really interesting when you put John's face and Yoko's face in those two portraits right next to each other and you slide across it. It's this really interesting thing of revealing them one at a time separate. But when you pull it off and you see them together, it does this weird mind blending thing where you like almost see a composite face of the two of them. And it was
No.
so funny because when I was showing it on Zoom, and it pulled back to show the two of them mixed together. Simon was like, "Oh, that's you, Sean. There you are.
Yeah,
It's just yeah,
totally.
John and Yoko. There you are." So
Oh,
I thought that was kind of sweet. And
that is very
conceptually,
sweet.
it ties in a lot to sort of the separation but togetherness of the album. And
Hmm.
just as a fan of John and Yoko's and Fluxus and that era of art in New York, I think it was kind of a neat thing to sort of dialogue and pretend I was a boho beatnik at one point.
That's awesome.
Um, what do you think, like, what role do you think that physical and interactive art like this can play in vinyl? I mean, we've seen the rabid collectors
Hmm.
really show their collectordom, but do you think that's kind of like where we're going to start pushing things in 2025, 2026? Is like, no, it's got to be more of a wow moment. No, it's got to be more this, because I mean, everybody's talking about how expensive records are and blah,
Hmm.
blah, 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 blah. So do you think that those are like gift with purchases that are kind of making the cost justifiable?
I think definitely the $1,000 box set is the extreme end. And I don't
Hmm.
think we're going to see that more than one or two releases a year from here on out. I do
Hmm.
think that we'll start to see them more as we start. I honestly see it less as a fan thing and almost like an archival thing.
Hmm.
Like it's a lot, the people that care about what's in that box set is a much bigger number and not necessarily all the people who bought the box set. Like there are
Hmm.
definitely some Beatlemaniacs in Spain and Mexico and France that like, didn't have the chance to import that, but
Yeah,
will probably, buy a digital copy of the stripped down mixes and
right.
analyze it and lend historians for all time. So I think we're going to see a lot of that with the sort of archival artists. I don't think we're going to see like a Sabrina Carpenter $1,000 box. I mean,
No,
maybe.
maybe.
Jeez, don't.
A Tay Tay one?
Yeah, as
Because
soon as I
I
said it, I was like, yeah, no,
yeah.
never mind. That's a good idea.
Yeah, well, I
Taylor's
mean, especially Taylor, because she's definitely one of those that has the, like you were talking about, it's like that weird
has the
third
stuff.
thing
Hmm.
that applies to the fandom.
Yeah.
Like painting her nails the color palette of the next album release and
Hmm.
like doing just like little Easter eggs like that. I'm
Yeah.
kind of shocked that she hasn't done one to
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. Honestly, that's true that some of those bands that have kind of a cult
Hmm.
following where it's like you wonder if they're really being bankrolled by just 15 super dedicated bands. Maybe those guys are going to start doing the deluxe box sets.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of intrinsic vinyl is, I mean, I think we all sort of expect it a little bit, but it's what we value most about physical media. Like the average vinyl listener, I buy a lot of music on Bandcamp.
Hmm.
I love having, streaming on my phone for stuff, especially for bands that are too small to press a record. But if I love an album and I want to hold on to it and stuff, like being able to pay $25 and wait a week and get it in the mail and open it up and actually look at this 12-inch thing, even if it doesn't have liner notes or a gatefold or anything, like something about being able to hold it in your hands and the
Yeah,
ritual of putting it on the turntable, like that's something every vinyl collector can relate to, and something that we all kind of superstitiously buy into, even if we like talk about audiophile quality or whatever. Like a lot of it is really just the ritual, the
totally.
experience of like, this is my album. I'm going to make time to listen to it. I'm going to set it on this holy altar, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of, if not all, most vinyl buyers are this kind of weird media cultist where
Hmm.
it's almost like I don't want to say a form of worship and start
No,
getting
you're there. We're
bap
there.
I don't want to.
We're all there.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're all into the back masking and communing with Ozzy that way.
Hmm.
But no, I do think that vinyl is very much part of the experience, you know. When you buy it, you're saying, I want this to be an object that I have in my home. It's something I'm proud of. It's something that I consider myself connected to this object and this work of art. I want to
Hmm.
experience it over and over, and I want to make a conscious effort to experience it. And I think the more that that experience can be expanded. It doesn't have to be expanded with, a thousand. Obviously, I love it if you want to contract me to make more crazy vinyl gimmicks.
Yeah.
But I remember just like ordering from Asian Man Records and like pouring out the lyric books and like reading them alongside while listening to it. Like that experience was so much richer and deeper than
Hmm.
just like listening to it when I was skateboarding in the parking lot. I mean, that was rich and that was a great experience too. But it's very different. It is sort of a form of dedicated listening,
Hmm.
taking in the whole world of the album. And I think especially as a visual artist,
Hmm.
you know, music has always affected me really deeply. I think a lot of visual artists can relate to this, where like a song will completely make them cry, and then they try to learn it on the piano, and they're like, "Ooh, okay, I'm going to stick to pencils." So
Now I'm
being,
really gonna cry.
yeah, so I think being able to like dialogue with that world and like you want to actually be part of the album. You want to
Hmm.
make something that continues that experience and the idea and actually relates to it, and that fans can hold on to and sort of give back and expand on that inner world. I think that's really the power of packaging, more so
Yeah.
than like, if it looks good on a shelf and it's a really awesome cover and I'm like, wow, that looks metal as hell, I'm gonna buy it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But
Yeah.
that's different from, like, oh man, I'm gonna sit here and pour over the liner notes because I need to know
Every
what their
detail.
friends' bands are because I need
Hmm.
to buy every band in the scene right away. Like
Yeah.
that's a very powerful thing.
Hmm.
So I have an
Awesome.
artist to artist question for you. How do you stay inspired and continue like pushing the boundaries with your work? Because that's, I mean, to be honest, like that's why I got out of the world was I got so
Hmm.
burnt out doing the same thing over and over again to the point where like my mom wanted something for her birthday and I was like, Mom, I'm retired.
Hmm.
I ended up
Yeah.
making it for her, but still I was just like, I don't draw much anymore.
Hmm.
So I would love for others like me to hear sort of how you keep, fresh.
I think I'm really lucky as I keep saying I'm a standards-based designer and how much I love working with other artists. But I do think that working with other artists is an incredible engine, especially when you're sort of trying to learn their style and execute their style. That's a really great challenge for me as a designer because it's not like they're asking me to draw the same picture or to draw the same style of dog every time or anything. They're interested in the medium, but the actual execution is, they're more interested in that being like their record than my past work. So that means I have to stay on my game. I was really grateful for that phanogram project I had to do in November because that taught me so much about gradient mapping and just like all
Oh
these
yeah,
weird
that
little,
one was cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
like all
yeah.
these weird little things where it's like not an aesthetic that I'm personally like drawn
Hmm.
to or would do in my own life, but it's like, well, I learned it for this person and now I know the proper way to do halftone dots and animation. So that's really cool. Working with other artists and like being being forced to adapt to them definitely keeps you on your game. But it is inspirational too, because like seeing, I still nerd out every time that I get like the high res scan of a cover painting or something. I'm like zooming all the way in and being like, how did they do this? Because I'm married to a painter, but I've never had any kind of skill with illustration or anything. So like getting to zoom in on like those really intricate, super hand-drawn stuff, I'm like, whoa, this guy's awesome. And and I think for me, it's also really inspiring because like when you have to go and actually break down an illustration for animation, you're like, wow, I appreciate this so much more. I'm glad I didn't have to draw this.
Yeah.
So I think constantly being in awe of other artists is definitely a big motivator for me. A good way to stay on top of things.
Hmm.
But I do think as a working artist, when you're always working for other people, I do think that can kind of lead to burnout because a lot of times, like if you have an idea, but you just spent 16 hours and you don't want to do anything but play Pac-Man, it's like, okay, that's not, I'm just going to shelve that and like eventually get around to it. And that's, it's almost like not, it's not burnout as much as like it's like a pressure release valve where I'm like,
Hmm.
I have to go make something weird and unsellable, or I'm not going to being able to make anything commercial viable again.
Right.
Like I have to go and make this stupid thing that I'm not going to be able to sell. And is like probably fan art and is like, not actually really cool and maybe makes me look like a nerd. But like now that I've got it out of my head, I can finally like work on stuff people want to pay me for again.
Shake
So
your sillies out in order to get to get
yeah,
back on
it is
track.
very much a shake your sillies out. But I know a lot of artists like that,
Hmm.
especially like commercially successful artists where it's like they have to do something silly and like it's like no, don't ask if this is going to be for sale or like or if I'm going to turn it into a full project or whatever. I just had to draw this stupid thing and get it out of my system or else my brain wouldn't let me be. So,
Well, anytime you want to put it into physical, you let me know. I'll make you one
thank you.
anytime you want.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, I need the audio.
I want to see the weird that comes
Mhm.
out of Drew Tetz. That's what I want to see. Absolutely.
I need the audio component to take advantage of the lathe though. So I
We'll
need the
just
house
use this
band.
audio. We'll just
Yeah,
use
there you
this
go.
audio from the podcast and
There you go.
yeah.
So, who would you say are some of your biggest influences when combining art and music? Is there anybody doing that you think's really
Yeah. Oh, definitely. There's so many people. Tierra Whack. I know she's primarily a musical artist, but she's really involved in like the visual direction of all of her videos and stuff. And I think her EP Whack Worlds, which 5 years ago now, I think it was right before COVID hit. But it's a 16-minute video, and it's basically an album of songs, but all the songs are a minute or so. And it is insanely good. I think it's probably the best hip hop project of the past decade, like on
Ooh.
without any other qualifications. But the fact that she also made like a brilliant avant-garde short film to go along with it, it's like this is insane. I don't think there's anything else really like it. I mean, there's comparable points, but I think the extent to which she did it was like insane. And she's also done a lot of cool music videos recently. She works with this Philadelphia animation studio I'm a big fan of, uh, Do Wave, Deux Wave. So shout out to those guys. They're really cool. Shout out Tierra Whack. She doesn't know me, but I'm going to shout her out because she's cool.
That's okay.
Another brilliant Philadelphian. I'm not actually from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to accuse me of pulling for the Eagles here, we don't care about sports. But
No,
another
we have our
brilliant
own team.
Philadelphia. Another brilliant Philadelphian is Francis Keeneland of Hopalong, and they are absolutely get disowned that Hopalong album. I would say probably after the Weezer's Blue album is my favorite album I've listened to most of all time ever. They're just
Really?
absolutely brilliant, and they're also a an illustrator who's done the cover art for most of their works.
Cool.
I don't know if they have any, you know, I'm not in touch with their release schedule, but I'm hoping for something in 2025. That would be really cool.
I feel
And
like Dochi's gonna have a cool
oh
Zoetrope
my
idea.
God. Oh my God,
Yeah.
she is amazing.
Uh-huh.
She's definitely another one where it's just completely blowing me away. Like I
Hmm.
whatever she's gonna do next, I can't wait. And
Yeah.
all of the Denial is a River stuff that she did, the little sitcoms and the
Hmm.
little sketches with Zach Fox, those are cracking me up.
Yeah, I feel like she's so conceptual. I feel like a zoetrope or some sort of interactive something is going to be something that happens.
I
I'm just
I would
I'm manifesting that for all of us.
I'd 100% accept that manifestation. I would
Yeah.
be beyond honored because she is brilliant.
Yeah, she's
There's
brilliant.
there's a ton of I think it's a good time in music generally.
Hmm.
You know, I live in rural Georgia, so I'll say it's not necessarily my favorite time in country music radio. We're in a bit of a lull there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But in terms of like really visionary new hip hop and rap and a lot of new rock acts, I think it's a really good time. It's a really
Hmm.
exciting time to be in the music industry. And as a music listener who spends too much on records every month, it's either good or bad, depending how you look at that.
Uh,
I, I love it. Yeah, I mean, other than Dochi and Tay, like who's the dream? What's the grail for Drew Tetz in
I
2025, 2026?
I honestly I can't even I feel so entitled talking about the idea of a grail because I've already gone so far beyond what
I
I
love
had
it.
ever imagined or dreamed. Like I didn't expect any of this, and every day the fact that I get to wake up and make pictures for records is like, wow, that's crazy. Are you sure? You sure I can
Yeah.
pay my mortgage with this? Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've already gotten to do something for gorillas, which I thought was like
Mm,
that was my first kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna, I don't think it'll happen, but I'll dare to dream. Like this
yeah.
is the cartoon band and the band that I loved the most when I was in seventh grade. So when that happened, I was like, wow, I'm done. I can check out or realistically die, and I'm good. Like I've got it done. But then, I mean, last year I got to do something for Weezer's Blue Album 30th anniversary, which is
Mhm.
literally the album I've spent, not just album, like work of art, more than any movie or book or anything. I have spent so much time with that thing on repeat my whole teenage
Really?
years. So,
Huh.
like, I mean, that was like, I still don't think I've processed it really. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
all that time I spent listening to it, it just kind of
Hmm.
manifested into the world. And I guess it was a real physical thing that people purchased as well.
Yeah, totally.
So
A
saying
lot
that,
of a
it's
lot of people purchase that.
yeah, mind
Yeah.
blowing. But like looking at it like that, I, I mean, how can I even say a grail? I mean, obviously, Beatles would be cool, and like now that I've
Mhm.
done something with Lennon and George Harrison, it's like not even unbelievable. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they did, not necessarily the most revered Beatles album, but they did do a really wacky cartoon thing in Yellow
Hmm.
Submarine, which
Yes, they
I am
did.
not ashamed to say that I love, unironically. I know that that's not a universally held opinion among Beatles fans, but I love it. So, yeah, if they ever want to go full psychedelic, I'm there for that.
I mean, that would be cool. That would
And
be super cool.
and definitely there's a ton of musicians who are like Tom Waits or Janelle Monáe or Bruce
Hmm.
Springsteen, where I'm like, I don't think you want a zoetrope. I don't know what it would look like, but I mean, if you ever do, I'm here and will pay you to do it. I won't really pay you to do it.
Yeah, yeah, no,
I'll
no.
probably work under ridiculously under fee though. So
No, no, no. We're
don't let
not we're
them
not
hear
letting
that.
you do that either. No, 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 no. But like a born in the USA back pocket scenario would be a pretty cool
That would be cool.
uh kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
We always need more Bruce's butt wherever we get it.
truly. I mean, now that we've also seen Janelle Monáe moonwalk, like that
That's
would
true.
be a pretty cool little clip on a
Well,
Janelle Monáe record
she's
too.
another amazing visual artist. So,
Hmm.
if anything, I think that she's too far futuristic. So she's not interested in returning to the distant analog past. She's already living in 4009.
Who knows, man? I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like somebody like that has a pretty hefty appreciation from where she
Hmm.
came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
I know
I
that she's probably got a pretty bitchin' record collection.
oh, absolutely. I can't even.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be the coolest record club. That
Mm. Hmm. The
or
Quincy Jones Record Club. We're just
oh my
like,
God.
hey, what's going on, Quincy, buddy?
Hmm.
Let me come over and see what's on the shelves.
so what advice would you give to young artists who want to work in this space? I think that's something that I get asked a lot.
Hmm.
It's something that I wanted to do, and there isn't really resources for it.
Hmm.
I have an idea that I don't want to put out into the world, so we'll talk about it later. But for here, um, what would you suggest?
Just do it. Keep doing it. I mean, a lot. I didn't think this was a job. I don't know that it is, honestly.
Mm.
I'm definitely still too scared to call it a career, but when I started doing this, I definitely didn't think I was going to quit my job to do it. I didn't even think I would ever make money. It was kind of just
Wow.
like, wow, this is a really cool thing, and it's a way for me as a sometimes slightly insane artist to dialogue with this thing that makes me less insane. So like on just a personal enrichment level, it was worth it, and I didn't even really consider it.
Aw.
But then it started forming all these kind of inroads for me where I was able to kind of reach out to people in the music community and start to form links with, people's kind of on the fringe of indie psychedelia who are interested in sort of this visual application to the music. And Daedalus, someone who I had admired, actually brought me in and started introducing me to sort of Los Angeles people.
Mm.
So things like that, it wasn't a job when I started doing it. I don't know if it is, but I'm paying my mortgage. I'm not, in the poorhouse. I'm,
Is there like a program and things that kids should, start to get familiar with? Because I mean, like everybody knows that the world runs on Excel, and that's
Mhm.
like one of the actual things that they should have taught us in school.
Oh my goodness,
But
yes.
you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
like, is it Photoshop? Is it Adobe? Is it Lightroom? Is it Canva? I mean, I can see all of the graphic designers in the world rolling their eyes so hard that their retinas detach. I can see it, and that's exactly why I said it. You're
Well,
welcome.
I
But
think that I mean I definitely have access to the Adobe suite, so that's great. I
Mhm.
recognize that's not something that every teenager can afford. Although
Mhm.
if you are a student, it's a little bit more affordable, and your
Right.
university might even cover you. But I use the Adobe suite. Um, Having said that, none of the things I use it for on a day-to-day were taught to me in design school.
Right.
All of the actual zoetrope stuff, I kind of had to just brute force and like
Mhm.
figure out by plugging in a bunch of numbers until it started to look not too stretched out.
Right.
So, like just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you can't do it.
Amen.
Maybe nobody knows.
I still don't
And
know what the hell I'm doing,
yeah,
honestly. Come
so
on. Yeah.
I think a little bit of kind of well-placed stubbornness and just like, I don't know, if it doesn't work out, it's gonna look weird, even if it
Mhm.
doesn't look right. I think kind of having that attitude and like, I mean, like you want to do it. I okay, a little bit of a tangent, but I've had a lot of success with making like you would call it fan art. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a little bit of a denigrated phrase, but like I mean, I made it because I was a fan of the work and I wanted to study the animation, or I just thought it was cool, and I made it and
Mhm.
put it on Instagram. With no real expectation. I kind of just wanted to do it, but I've been lucky enough to get a couple jobs off of that. I got to do an official Cowboy Bebop slip mat because I was just a huge mega nerd fan of the show. And that's insane to me. I don't think that, teenage illustrators should expect that all fan art should turn into jobs.
Mhm.
But even the ones that didn't turn into jobs, I think have really helped me in my growth as an artist because, for one thing, even if I didn't show it to anybody and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty bad, I learned something by trying to
Mhm.
study it, by studying the work that motivates me.
Yep.
And I realized things about what was compelling. And, I learned a bit of the technical execution side too, but getting to figure out that part of it in the artistic, I think that's an important thing for a lot of artists to just figure out why the work that moves them. But then also it connected me with other people, other like-minded artists and fans, even if it's just like my bro from high school being like, "Oh, I didn't know you liked that band." Like that is a connection, and that those kind of connections can foster other unique experiences. And honestly, everything just leads into everything. You never know when things are going to go.
Mhm.
I had a guy I knew from the pro yo-yo career, later become a professional skateboarder
I
and
just love
refer
that
me to
he's a
somebody in
professional
Japan.
yo-yoer.
Yeah, and like, see, you wouldn't think, but everything ties into something. Even if it's like you're super obsessed with Norwegian metal bootlegs from whenever, like if you find that same collector who's into that, like that's a data point that you can talk about, and that's a unique perspective you have relating to the art that not
Mhm.
everybody has. So that's not really a concrete piece of advice, but just I don't know, keep doing it. Be interested in stuff. Don't worry if it's not going to make you money. You know, if you're getting better and making stuff that you like, you're headed in the right direction, and you're going to start to resonate with people that see that. So, or if not, at least you're making art that you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
People keep going. That's the
hmm
thing, you know?
yeah, as long as you're moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
At what is it? At 16 frames per second? Is that what it is? What's
30
the math?
frames.
30. See?
30. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'm so bad at math. That's
Oh,
why
I am too. Even people talk like I figured out the math, and I was like, I did figure out the math once, but
mm.
I didn't actually figure out the
And then I
equation. I
wrote it
just,
on my wall in a Sharpie, so I never
yeah,
had to figure it out again.
I plugged in numbers until I got the right number.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, one of my friends who's good at math was like, did you know that if you divide this by 360 and multiply it by this, you actually get the frame rate? No, Mark, never occurred to me. I'm glad to finally know what the equation is, but I did not know that. Thanks a lot.
Oh man. I mean, that's exactly what I thought too. I was like, I should go back to my high school and find my physics teacher and be like, guess what I do every day?
Yeah.
Physics. Like,
Hmm.
why? How could you not say that music is physics? Why
Hmm.
in the world wouldn't you try and make that real world correlation to make something that we all love so much and
Hmm.
make that? Because, like, I didn't know that I was gonna fall in love with sine waves and like
Hmm.
need to know them obsessively. But here I am. I had to do physics twice.
Hmm.
Like, come on, dudes.
They,
Find
they need
something
to
that
get
we like, yeah,
they need
and
to
do
get
it for them.
the lathe workshops in high schools.
Well, I mean, you're talking to the two right ladies to try and figure that
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean? This is the mission. This is the goal.
I'm
This is
working
what we're
on
trying to
it in
do.
audio programs at colleges.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
on the board at a technical college here for that.
Good. Good.
Well, now we'll talk to them about visual design things as well, Jen, which
Nice.
we're also well adept to talk to them about. Okay, well, as a longtime fan of the podcast, you know it's coming. Some people prepare for it, some people don't, which I love. But in the spirit of record collecting, if you, Drew Tetz, could make a 7-inch record that had anything on the A side, I feel like Weezer's going to be on the A side for this one, and anything on the B side, what would your custom Drew Tetz 7-inch record be? And what
I
would the Zoetrope aspect be on it?
that's the thing, right? I feel like I feel like all everyone in the music industry has asked themselves this question.
Hmm.
And if we're honest, I mean, like, I love the idea of doing the vanity record and getting to pick any two people in the world. But I think we all kind of foster the secret punk dream of like, no, I'm going to run 500 pieces. I'm going to sell them out of my garage. I'm only
Yeah.
going to sell 70 of them. And I'm going to have all these boxes forever.
Hey, that's my whole business model, dude.
Yeah. So I think I'm still kind of clinging to that dream, and it's still like, okay, well, there's this really awesome. He unfortunately recently purged the majority of his music from the internet, which breaks my heart. I hope
Mm,
this means that he's found a distributor. But there's this absolutely brilliant songwriter from Roanoke, Virginia, named Doug Cheatwood, who was
okay.
working on this. I was a fan of him in high school when he was doing sort of more or less just art rock. I mean, it was a little bit of the Tom Waits sort of weird theatrical stuff, but still
Mm,
more or less rock and roll.
cool.
In the 20 years since then, he started writing and producing his own like full 20-minute or 20 to 30-minute rock operas,
Oh,
where he portrays all of the roles and does like costumes and stuff. So
huh.
like very, very
Wow.
wild, like kind of like late night cable access stuff,
Cool.
but
Getting
he's actually a brilliant songwriter. So it's like, oh my God, how does this
wild.
only have 160 views? Who is this strange man?
Huh.
So definitely, if I ever win the lottery, I'm going to spend a significant portion of it trying to make the world like Doug Cheatwood.
Okay.
But as far as what the actual, well, I mean, I guess if he's making these rock operas, we gotta put that on there. I'll let him
Okay.
choose which two songs and
I
what
was
the
going to say
visual is, but
in this one instance, like we can give you a 12-inch record because has there here's a question that is just occurring to me. Has there ever been a 7-inch Zoetrope? What is
yeah,
that?
yeah.
D- Like, have you
The
done
the
one of
math is
those?
the math is the same. It's
The
just
math
shrunk
is the
down.
same.
Yeah.
Just not like it doesn't matter. Well,
We did some for Mad Decent.
oh, did
Hmm.
you? Cool.
I can't remember what artist it was.
The Frighteners.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Cool.
was my first reggae one too. So that was a cool one.
Rad. I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, cool. I've never seen a 7-inch Zoetrope before.
Yeah, that was a cool one actually. This is the only time I found them. I found these 7-inch circle frames, and I've only found
Mhm.
two of them in my life in my wanderings through hobby stores. So I put the two Frighteners in that.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
I am fond of that release.
Okay, so Doug Cheewood, he was on the A side and the B side, or are you
Yeah,
gonna slap some deep cut on the B side?
I think my number one pick is to just go Doug Cheatwood and let him choose whatever
Okay.
an A and B side forms a complete rock musical.
Well, we're gonna.
Or I guess I'll do a backup pick, which
Mhm.
is also in the 2000s. John Flansburgh of They Might Be Giants and his wife were in an off-Broadway show that they wrote called People Are Wrong. I don't think it's ever been I don't know if they even recorded it. I think they did record some of the songs as like a,
Yeah,
pitching kind of thing, but it's never been released. And I
funny.
th and I think as a They Might Be Giants nerd, like we
Mhm.
need that piece of physical media.
There's a kid
And
that used to come into the record store that I worked with, and he's 9 years old, and his name is Hunter, and he knew everything about There
nice.
Might Be Giants. Like that's his band. So
Oh yeah.
I wonder if he knows that about this.
Yeah. Well, that's a deep cut because I don't think it
Yeah.
ever had a physical. But I did get
Mm.
to, my parents took me to see it in New York when I was like 17, which is a super cool,
Aw.
amazingly nerdy but heartwarming story.
Shout out to mom and dad Tetz.
For real.
Yeah, that's
And then
so cool.
Yeah, and then I got to do the They Might Be Giants record 2 years ago. So full
Rad.
circle, beautiful.
Totally. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
okay. So, I mean, he answered it, Jen.
Yeah.
That was a very comprehensive answer. I like
I
that.
I got more answers if you want them, but
I,
none of them are financially viable.
hey,
No.
we work in the not-for-profit space. We know about
Yeah,
not financially viable. Come on. But anybody that wants to contribute to the Women in Vinyl Pursuits, you can do that at patreon.com/women in vinyl. You can join us here on YouTube and all of the other things. Drew Tetz, give us your socials. Give us your things. Where do we find you? What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
I'm working now that we had that awesome month where I was like, I can only work on the Super Bowl because it pays enough for me to put all other projects on the wayside. And now all those projects have come back. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. But if you want to keep in touch with me, I'm probably mostly on Instagram. I'm going to try to move to Blue Sky soon, but it's
Yeah.
just my name, Drewtetz. Yeah, come look at some animated records.
Yeah. Do it.
Support women in vinyl, both on
Thanks, buddy.
Patreon and in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Nice to finally connect.
Yeah,
Totally.
thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for doing that awesome slip mat for
Oh,
us.
my pleasure. It was so fun. I'll do
Totally.
another one.
Hey, look at it. It's right there. Maybe we'll do another one for Hella Spooky
Yeah.
season this year.
Nice. I'm in.
Awesome.
All right. Like, subscribe, and thank you again, Drew.
All right, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, take care. Bye.
Happy Super Bowl.
Happy Super Bowl. See you tomorrow. See you on the
Tomorrow.
big screen tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
Bye.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl and Red Spade Records. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.